Nice to meet you. I have one thing here, maybe something that, oh, let me get this one. I've been planning for a long time, and so Brooke knows about it, and I think I'm looking forward to establish this one, Yazidi Kitchen, and hopefully Megan, I will be using some of her products that she will be talking about. So we need her help too. Thank you so much.
Will you be serving coffee?
Only tea.
I'm only coming in the afternoon, and I only drink tea in the afternoon.
And he makes excellent tea, I can tell you that.
Yes, he does.
Well, thank you everyone for being here. It is my pleasure to introduce Megan McGuffey with Community Crops.
Yes, thank you all. And I'm going to share my screen so you can see photos and as I'm talking, but I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all today. Let's see. Here we go. As Brooke said, I'm the executive director with Community Crops. We are a local nonprofit that's been here in Lincoln for almost 20 years. And our mission is to provide education, advocacy, and experiences to grow local food. And we do that through a variety of programs and means. And I do like to show that we are really all over the city of Lincoln. So we have 12 gardens across the city. We have multiple farm sites, we do production greenhouses. So we really have a pretty far reach throughout the community. And I always love to start with a little bit of context as to why we do what we do and how this might affect the work that you're all interested in. First of all, we really think about food systems. So a food system, in case you're not familiar, is just all of the pieces and organizations and supply chains that it takes to get your food from a farmer's farm out to your plate each and every day. So as you can imagine, that's quite a few people, and that's kind of represented in this chart here. And the average bite of food that an American eats today travels over 1,000 miles to get to their plate. So this is a very globalized, very industrialized system with very long and complicated supply chains oftentimes. And so when we focus here at Community Crops is on local food systems, and this is the same components, but in a bound geographic area. And another way that I think is really helpful to think about this is the concept of a food shed, which really borrows from the natural resources concept of a watershed. So for a population, say the city of Lincoln, what is the land base that is required to feed that community? And that's when we can start to think about building a local food system. And we care about this work for a couple of key reasons. First is household food security. There are still people in Lincoln that are going hungry. And hunger today might look a little different than what we traditionally think about. It might mean you don't know where your next meal is coming from, or maybe grandma, mom, guardian is skipping lunch so that the kiddos have enough food to eat. And then there's this additional challenge that's kind of endemic in our country, that is the healthiest foods are the most expensive. So we have this paradoxical situation where families that are living in poverty have all these diet-related diseases because those healthy, nutritious foods are expensive, they're not shelf stable, and so that presents new challenges. And really across the economic spectrum, Nebraskans are not eating what they're supposed to eat. You would be shocked the number of Nebraskans that don't even get one serving of fruit or vegetables in a day. So that has economic implications for our community too. It affects public health, it affects productivity. So it's a big challenge we'd like to address. And then we also like to take this up one more level and think about community food security. So Nebraska has over 45 million acres of farm and ranch land, but most of that is being used to grow feed for animals for products that become fuel. So we're an agricultural powerhouse known, internationally, and actually we're a net importer of food. Well over 90% of our food is estimated to come from outside the state of Nebraska. And there's a few reasons that we would like to change that. So first is community resilience. And I think there's been a huge spotlight on this the last 2 years, but when you have a globalized and industrialized food chain, it's very fragile. And we've seen that. So whether it's a drought in California, which is sort of the produce basket of America, this image above is them pulling out almond orchards because they don't have sufficient water. Or it's a global pandemic that I think for the first time, many of us have seen empty grocery store shelves, disruptions to products that we're used to finding every time we go to the store. So when you build redundancy into a system and you have more local food production, your community is more resilient to whatever challenges it faces. And that's a priority for us. The other side of this is really an opportunity. It's a positive because we're importing so much food right now. Nebraska is leaving a lot of money on the table. We are losing millions, if not billions at the state level of dollars because we're importing food. So just like any of your local businesses, a dollar spent with a local farmer, a local restaurant has an economic multiplier effect. It has a greater than $1 impact on the local economy. So when we grow local food, we prioritize those businesses, we're actually strengthening the local economy. So going into our current programs a little bit more, this group is focused on entrepreneurship, and I really want to highlight that today, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention our community garden program. It's the longest standing part of our work, and it's probably the best known in the community. You've probably driven by a community crops garden since we have 12 around the city. And this really gets to that household level food security. So families can rent a plot at a low cost and they're able to grow some of that healthy produce on their own. And so that obviously helps with their grocery budget, but it also helps with, mental and physical health, being out in nature. And we do special project gardens as well. So the image on the right is from the Kenyao Garden. This is a project with the Asian Community and Cultural Center where we realized we had a group of Karen elders who really wanted to garden in more traditional communal ways that were true to their community. And they wanted to do more intergenerational work. So we actually were able to do a garden in collaboration with those two communities to do things their way and let them celebrate their cultural practices around food. So we're always willing to look for unique partnerships in that way. But moving on to our work with entrepreneurs, we really focus this around our farm program. And so we have two major farm sites. One is Prairie Pines, and this is like a true incubator program for a business. So what happens is people who want to farm, who want to grow food as a business for sale in the market, they can come to us, and at Prairie Pines, which is a 5-acre farm on a 145-acre nature preserve at 112th and Adams, the farmers can come and they can access land, they can access tools and equipment, education and technical assistance to help them build their businesses. And they can do this for 5 years at the site with the hope being that they're kind of growing and honing their skills every year. And then we'll eventually be able to leave this site with a great business model, find their own land and continue from there. One moment, my slides don't want to advance here. Stop sharing. Technology, so fun. Try one more time. Great. Okay, and this is our newest site. So this is a 12-acre farm in the Airpark area. And so one of the lessons we learned when supporting entrepreneurs at Prairie Pines was this dream and this vision of, okay, after 5 years, you're going to be ready to launch your business. You're going to find your own land and be successful. Wasn't quite as true as we'd hoped in the current economic environment. Farmland prices are outrageous, especially for specialty crop producers, which is what fruits and vegetables are considered by the USDA definition. And so the trend we were starting to see is we were graduating these successful entrepreneurs, these people who had real farming skills, who had developed unique products in the market, and their businesses were struggling because they were having to lease land. They were kind of getting bumped from property to property every few years, which was not a great way to build a sustainable business. So community crops, we don't own land. That's not our business. We just support and provide that education and access. So we started to brainstorm and think, who owns land in Lincoln, especially farmland, that we could start to scale this up and give farmers longer term land access. And so the answer for us was local governments. If you think about who owns massive tracts of land in and around the city, it's your school districts who are buying land to build a school in 10 years. It's your city of Lincoln, your NRDs, your natural resource districts. So we started to look around for partners who might be interested in converting existing farmland that was growing those crops that are fuel or food for animals, and to see if they'd be willing to convert some of that over, keep it in farmland, but have it being growing food for people. And so thanks to the help of Councilwoman Tammy Ward and the Lincoln Airport Authority Board, we were able to find a home right outside the runway. As you can see, that's that big cool plane that could only land at our airport because of the size of the runway this year. So we are right against the runway, and that is the new home of the Airpark Farm. So this is a 12-acre property, much larger than Prairie Pines, and it's intended to kind of be like a graduation space or a place for more advanced farmers so that they can continue to build that sustainable business and not be so worried about land access in the long term. So it's a great space where it's still in development, but we're really excited for the potential in the coming years. And I love the other part of the story I love that I want to share is like entrepreneurs helping each other. So there was a retiring farmer who was in rural Nebraska, and he really believed in these local food concepts I'm talking about and the importance of sort of helping that next generation of farmers. And so with the proceeds from the sale of the last of his farmland, he actually donated that to us so that we could start this property. So it was a really amazing like handoff from one generation of farmer and entrepreneur to another. And we're just so thrilled to be the recipients of that. So other ways we help our farmer entrepreneurs, farming in Nebraska has lots of challenges in our climate. One of them is that we have a fairly short growing season. So the ways we help farmers tackle this, on the left, you can see an image from our production greenhouse. So part of this is a tool for Community Crops as an organization. One of our big revenue generators is an annual plant sale that takes place in early May. And so we kind of have created this space in the market where we grow varieties of common vegetables that are harder to find at the big box stores, and it has a pretty loyal following. So we love that sale. But one of our greenhouses is completely dedicated to low-cost rentals to beginning farmers. So helping those entrepreneurs start their own plants for their farms so that they can have a successful growing season at an appropriate business cost. And they're also growing plants for sale, which is a great early season revenue source for them before they have crops that are in production. The image on the right is season extension on the farm itself. So these are called either hoop houses, caterpillar tunnels, high tunnels, but the concept is you're somehow covering a space on the farm so that you can grow some crops later into the season when it starts to get cold. Our farmers have been growing certain greens all the way until you get that really hard frost in January or February. And then it also gives you a jump start. So what you can see here is either, I think it's cucumbers or squash. So, you know, things that wouldn't do well in the early spring when it's still cool, but if you cover them up, they get kind of a little extra temperature boost and you can start them earlier in the season. So just giving farmers tools to get closer to year-round income with their farm. Another way we try to help them farm smart is through research. So we're really proud of a partnership we have with the UNL professor right now, and we're always open to new partnerships. One of the biggest challenges for organic vegetable farmers in Nebraska is weed pressure. So, you know, you're trying to, like any business, you want to work smart, not hard. And so when you have all of this weeding to go, it's really creating a lot of problems. So this is a really cool case where the farmers are actually participating in the research. And not only are they learning how to do their own business smarter, but they're generating knowledge that will benefit other entrepreneurs in the future. So it's very exciting. And then on the right is an image of our new food forest out at the farm. And we also have an agroforestry plot. So these are mimicking natural systems. You know, forests have layers. There's an upper canopy in the trees. There's vines. There's low growing material. So we're taking those same concepts and we're instead substituting in plants that are all edible. So fruit and nut trees, berry brambles, the wood chips you see here are all inoculated with mushrooms. So basically this entire space is growing perennial foods that can be sold, medicinal herbs, things like that. And it's a lower impact. It requires less natural resources, and it also requires a little less maintenance from the farmers. So we're just demonstrating another option to them to kind of grow a diverse business that can be successful in a variety of circumstances. We also help our entrepreneurs with market access. Not only do you have to be a good grower and farmer, but you have to figure out where do you fit in the Lincoln market. So we do this in a few different ways. Union Bank and Trust sponsors our veggie van. That's our mobile farmers market. We go to the farmers market at College View on Sundays. So our farmers can opt into that program if they want to practice their skills in direct to consumer sales, build those customer relationships. but we also help them access things like local grocers. So this image on the far right is from Open Harvest, where our products are sold. And we also help them access wholesale markets throughout the community. And finally, I wanted to highlight the Yazidi Farmers Project. The majority of our farmers in the program today are from this community. And if you don't know, this is an ethnic minority group from Northern Iraq. We have the largest population of this community in the United States, and we're very lucky to have them. Unfortunately, they had to leave their home country due to persecution from ISIS. And many of them had incredible farming knowledge. They had very large farms back in Iraq. So this has been a really wonderful project because they're able to rebuild their cultural food sheds here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and the entire community is benefiting. And I think it's a really interesting entrepreneurial story because each farmer has to find their specialty, right? And that's different for every farmer in our program. But for this group of farmers, they have learned to really specialize in some culturally important crops that were difficult, if not impossible, to find in Lincoln before in a retail setting. So the image on the left, our farmer Caro is growing pickling peppers. So this is sort of like a sweet Italian type variety of pepper that's really important in that cuisine. They also grow things like cress, cutting celery, things you might be more familiar with, like eggplants and tomatoes. But they found this whole market and they're supporting their own community members. And for many of them, they're actually doing wholesale to local Arabic markets, because that's another really neat thing about the city of Lincoln. We have this rich tapestry of different ethnic grocery stores. And so many of our farmers are selling to different Middle Eastern communities through those markets here in Lincoln. So I think it's a great story about every entrepreneur has their own journey and finds their own place in the community. And we're just here to support and facilitate however that looks for them. So yeah, I just want to thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present. And I wanted to leave lots of space for conversation, but that's kind of a high picture overview of our programs, especially where we work with farmers. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Megan. Any questions, comments?
Go for it. Oh, I forgot my question. I got so involved in everything else that it's like, okay.
Well, to me, there's a bunch of things. One, we're also starting to bring in a large Afghan population. We have, at our church, we've adopted a family, and I had the pleasure of taking part of that family to a doctor appointment. And what happened was I go to the house where they're renting. We do a thing called home in a box. We furnish a lot of apartments and homes. Before I could take them from their home to the doctor, I had to sit down on the floor and have tea. They had room full of furniture, but they weren't using it. And that, I mean, that's part of the culture. I understand that. And is there anything in our community that is farming yet for Afghans? Or would that be another whole new entrepreneurial market?
Yes, that's a great question. We do think that's a new market. And I've actually been talking with some of the other nonprofits that are specifically working with the Afghan community that's coming in. And we hope to connect with them through those groups. My understanding is, of course, it varies like any community, but there are a significant number of families that are coming from particular regions of Afghanistan where farming is very popular. And an interesting space we've been wanting to move into, we're just looking for the right land partner to do it, is more livestock husbandry, because some of the groups from Afghanistan, I understand livestock husbandry is very popular. And even with our own group of farmers, I think there's like a fascinating network in Nebraska of like, if you come from an area where goat is popular in your cuisine, for example, like everyone has a goat guy, like you have some farmer in Nebraska that you know you can get your goat meat from. And so I think that would be a great market opportunity for some of our farmers. We just need to find the space to allow them to do something unique like that. So yes, we're definitely interested in expanding what we've been able to accomplish and what we've learned with the Yazidi Farmers Project to other communities, and always customize. We never want to just try to boilerplate, do the same thing. We want to do what works for that community.
We don't know what they know. They don't know.
Exactly. So true.
So has the community crops partnered with some of these like Nuaf's new restaurants and whatnot to be able to, because that takes a specific ingredient to make those lovely dishes. Have they partnered with those?
Yes, it really varies by farmer. And I will say the pandemic disrupted the farming industry just like any other industry. So many of our farmers were doing a lot of restaurant sales, but when the pandemic hit, some of those relationships were disrupted or the service style changed. So I think that they're in a rebuilding period, and some of our farmers are certainly selling to local restaurants. We also do a big fundraiser every year called Feast on the Farm, and we partner with 12 to 15 local chefs and have them feature products from our farmers in the meal. So that's a way of like demonstrating that and celebrating chefs that do prioritize sourcing locally. So we hope to continue growing that. And yes, restaurants, Hub Cafe is a great example. They have done special dishes around Yazidi ingredients, working with our staff and farmers. So we're always open to those things. And it's exciting to see that happen in the local restaurant scene.
So if someone like a child, one of mine, wants to find some ingredients for that specific dish, is Open Harvest the only place that it is being sold at this point in time?
There are a few different options. We always do direct to consumer sales during the season. So whether that's going to the farmer's market or, that's another thing that changed during the pandemic. Some of our farmers found like the families that they were serving wanted to come out to the farm. They were stuck in apartments. It was nice to go out to the farm and experience all the beauty out there. So they were buying directly from there. We also sell through avenues such as Lonetree Foods, which is an online wholesale food hub. So we can our farmers can list their products there, and then restaurants, grocery stores, individual consumers can purchase in bulk through that venue. So we're always evolving, and this year we're trying a CSA model. So that's another option. It'll be focused around the Yazidi crops, and it'll be a little bit more culturally specific, but that's a vegetable subscription box where every week you would get a certain amount of produce. So yeah, it's always evolving, and we're always open to forming those relationships with individuals in addition to directing them to those existing avenues.
So is that lonetreefoods.com or org to be able to find out that information?
A great question. Let me double check that for you. .com.
Okay.
Mhm.
She will be checking that out because she makes amazing, I can't even think of the word, Asian food or other food like that. That's like, she's always looking for ingredients that you cannot find at your regular grocery store.
Yes, that's fabulous. Yeah, they're a great avenue. And then certainly Open Harvest has quite a variety. And then that's another neat thing about Lincoln, besides all the ethnic markets I mentioned, because that's where a lot of our farmers are selling, is into different Arabic markets. If you go to like a Super Savers specialize depending on the part of town they're in. So like one of our farmers is making Yazidi bread for one of the Super Savers out in the north side of town. So yeah, it's kind of it's a fun landscape to sort of explore and find who's highlighting products from different communities.
Super Saver on 48th and Old tends to cater to a lot of Asian community foods and products as well. My next question is, and this is my marketing brain kicking in, what are you doing or planning to do in terms of getting this message out to the community as a whole? Because most of this was new to me. Now I'm the old guy in the tent, but there's a lot of information here. Have you been on Pure Nebraska by chance?
Could you say the name again, please?
Pure Nebraska every morning at 9 o'clock.
We have been on one of the public public TV stations.
This is 1011 with John and Karen Vanderford, and they're always looking for someone to come in and speak on, especially on an agricultural site. I mean, if you haven't been there, you should be, because that's a great opportunity.
Thank you. Yes, I will look into that. And we do try to get the word out.
John Vanderford at 1011.
Thank you.
And it shows more than once a day, because in the evening, they'll be showing it again.
At 4 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
Well, yeah, they do.
Yeah.
That's no, but that was another question I had is, getting that message out, especially the young. What are you doing anything in the schools from an education standpoint, or?
Yes, that's a great question. So we do partner quite a bit with LPS, and Community Crops helped start many of the school gardens we have across the city. Although we do not operate any of them, we're more of a supporting outside partner at this point. But we do have a current project. We just inventoried all of the school gardens across LPS to just understand the current landscape and where we can go. And then we do a quarterly meeting with LPS to support educators and volunteers and how to grow those programs. And so we're always looking to grow. You know, there's a lot of opportunities with like farm to school or farm to early education to get kids exposed to these concepts early, introduce them to our farmers, get them excited about local food and gardening. So that's an area we hope to continue to grow in the future. And in addition to just various forms of public outreach and trying to get the word out.
There are some wonderful private schools as well. I happen to be a member of Messiah Lutheran. We have preschool through 5th grade, and we have outdoor classrooms there. And I've been involved in a project for creating from a flower standpoint and product identification. We're actually creating some garden areas there. That might be another area you could reach out to because they're always looking for new ideas. They're doing some raised beds for kids and helping them do all the planting and that type of thing.
Yeah, thank you. That's
I can
fantastic.
give you contact on that.
I appreciate that. Yes. And we have worked a little bit the last few years with Cedars, and we've been developing curriculum for like very early childhood, get kids exposed to gardening and eating food. So we'd love to kind of share the lessons we've learned in other spaces. And it's also fascinating. I mean, we were talking about regulations before the presentation started, and there's a lot of differences in different institutions as far as how they can source their products. And so sometimes those smaller institutions are much more flexible as far as bringing in local products and being able to work with local farmers. So they're really exciting avenues. And I know there are some farmers in Lincoln that kind of specialize in that market because they can see those good relationships being formed in those environments.
There's also some homeschool academies out there now that would be very interested in what you have to offer because it's very hands-on and whatnot. That would be right up their alley.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
As long as we're brainstorming, Christian Heritage, which is east of town, and that's a foster care. They're on like 100 acres or 50 acres out there. And they have I think 5 homes out there where they bring in parents who want to do foster care and do training on site out there. I'd encourage you to reach out to them as well. Because they might even have some land that they could help you put together for some crop farming.
I appreciate that. That is so significant because like I mentioned, we do not own any of the land we operate on. It's all through partnerships with local businesses, local faith communities. So we are always looking to form those relationships to open up new garden and farm sites.
Thinking as a business coach here, which is why I haven't said a lot, do the people who are doing the farming, are they setting up their own businesses or do they operate solely through yourself?
It's a variety. At the beginning, especially in their first year, they tend to do more sales through us and then they're under our insurance umbrella and everything. But as they move through the program, we do try to kind of encourage them to do more business planning, crop production planning, and really get to a space where they're kind of their own independent entity. And I think that's an area where we're looking to grow education. So great partners here on the call potentially, because we really want them to get to the end of this program and have all the tools they need to be successful entrepreneurs. And so part of that is stepping them through that. Another reason our programs are critical is because to qualify for a lot of government loans to the USDA for your farm, you have to have 3 years of records and experience. So if they can get that through us and document it properly, that sets them up for success as they move on to their own spaces. So yes, we would love to do more in the space of business coaching and helping people set up their businesses independently.
So if someone wanted to contact you about more information on this, would they go to communitycrops.com or how would they contact someone?
Yes, communitycrops.org, or you can do info@communitycrops.org if you want to email directly, and that'll come to me and I will make sure you're connected with the right member of our staff who can assist. So we're always looking for new members of any of our programs and new partners with any of those. So yes, appreciate those connections. Thank you.
And again, .org.
.org, yes, you got it.
Any other questions or comments?
Have you worked with Southeast Nebraska RD people?
Not too much yet, but it's an area we're interested in. So we've had a few preliminary conversations with individuals, but yes, that would be an organization that would be great to learn more about and see what fruitful partnerships could be there.
SEC
I-
might be a good connection too, for the fact that they've got that culinary college out there, and they were probably looking for things that you have to offer.
Yes, that would be wonderful. And we love having those institutional connections, so that it's part of the education process, is making those connections. And I know there's some wonderful things happening at SEC when it comes to greenhouse work and other educational components. So we're really excited that that's in Lincoln, and always here to partner when we can.
Yeah, I would say I also have a small garden with community crops, and it's been amazing. And also being into the Yazidi farmer project, it's very interesting, and I liked about the educational part of it last year. The community crop people were telling some of my Yazidi friends, don't flip that there because that will destroy and they were keep flipping those. So they brought a whole team of experts, and for like 2 hours showing them how, and I think that was interesting to learn, new techniques and to change something you've been doing for a long time in your home country. And then now you're coming, you have to, change to a new thing, adapt some new things.
Yeah, I think, off, it is always exciting to learn and to help them, even if you have all this farming knowledge, this is a different climate, and we really emphasize sort of sustainable organic agriculture. So that is a different challenge with specialty crops. So it is exciting to learn. And I also appreciate what we learned from our farmers. We've had a lot of fun the last few years partnering with students and professors to, one of the challenges the farmers see is their own community knows how to use these culturally appropriate crops. But when we go to the farmers market, if kind of a longtime Lincoln resident walks up and they're like, oh, that looks really great, that cutting celery, but I don't know what to do with it. So we've been working on like recipe development as another promotional tool so that more community members can buy their products and be excited. So we had a lot of fun this summer with the Yazidi farmers sharing their recipes and sharing their favorite dishes with students, who were then able to create recipes to help share out to the community and kind of spread that cuisine in Lincoln. It sounds like we'll have even more of that happening with your new business. So very exciting.
Wow. Oh, Graham, did you have something?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much, Megan. We appreciate your time and sharing all this information with us. If we have connections, we'll be sure to pass them along to you. And thank you, everybody, for being here in the studio and online.
Off, when's your kitchen open?
Yeah.
Good question.
I didn't